Okay, so here we are once again, and we're going to transfer another sketch onto a board. I've got a nice clean white board, a sheet of transfer paper. It's much like the old carbon paper that we used to use back before most of you were born. You don't know what I'm talking about. But anyways, we used to use carbon paper to make multiple copies of things like receipts and whatnot. Back before them computer things. So anyhow, it's like that, and like a lot of things that were in use with the general public, it's now pretty much exclusively in use for art supplies because nobody else needs it. So what I'm doing, I've taken this nice little sketch and I'm going over the sketch with a ballpoint pen, which is utterly ruining the sketch. But I don't care because the sketch isn't what I want. The painting that I'm going to do of the sketch, that's what I want. And that painting is going to be on that little board underneath. So I'm transferring, hopefully, the sketch onto the board. And so this is what we're doing. And this particular sketch is based on a photograph that I took on one of my many visits to the Phoenix Zoo. We have a membership with the zoo and we enjoy it very much. I like to go, sometimes I sketch at the zoo, but that's a whole different skill set. But I take a lot of photos and sometimes come home and do sketches based on my photos, and this is one. Got a nice enclosure for the tiger. So I photographed him there. I've got a friend who does wildlife art, has the whole time I've known her, while I was doing other types of art. But I've always had it in my head that one of these days I'm going to do some wildlife art. In fact, one of these days I'm going to do some wildlife based on my photographs from the zoo. And this friend of mine really got out way ahead of me, and she got in touch with the zoo somehow. I don't know. I haven't asked her. I don't know how she did it, but she's now selling her paintings at the zoo, which is super cool. I'm proud of her. I'm happy for her, and I'm pissed off at myself that I haven't done that myself. You know, when I've had that idea for a long time. I've had lots of ideas for a long time that I've never quite acted on. So this is one. I've always wanted to do some wildlife paintings. I've got a lot of material for doing paintings on. I've got a lot of ideas. I've got a lot of photographs. I've got the time. And why not do it? My main focus for the last few years has been to be a fantasy artist. And I love doing fantasy art. It's my favorite type of art. It's the kind of art that got me interested in being an artist for a living, looking at artists like Frank Frazetta, Gino Achille, Boris Vallejo, Frank Kelly Frias, all those guys. I always said when I was a kid, you know, I want to be that. I want to do that. And I still do, and I do some of that. That is a dream that has, to one extent or another, come to fruition. But most of the time when you do fantasy art, you're doing it for the publishing business. You're doing it for a book publisher or whatever. And not only have they never hired me to do artwork for them, for book covers, but at this point in my life, I don't much want them to. I'm having more fun doing my own projects, you know, just painting whatever comes to mind and not having to worry about pleasing somebody else or meeting a deadline or anything like that. And so I'd rather just do projects like this. And I'd rather do fantasy art really probably than wildlife, except I do enjoy wildlife paintings. And they're more likely to sell, quite frankly. Fantasy art can be a hard sell. So it isn't a purely commercial move on my part to say, let's go from fantasy art to wildlife art, because it is actually something I've wanted to do for a long while. I like it. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't do it. I promise. But it is probably going to be more successful than my fantasy art career. And if it's not, it's not. It's still, I'll sell some of these, I'm sure. And I like the fact that this environment that I'm creating looks recognizably as a scene from the zoo. If you're familiar with the zoo and you go to the zoo a lot, there's a chance, anyways, that you'll look at this tiger painting and you'll go, that looks like the Phoenix Zoo. At least I'm hoping that's the case. Mostly it's just a picture of a tiger, and I don't care if you can recognize the background or not, but you may be able to recognize the background in this, and that might have appeal to people who are fans of the zoo. So here we are. We've got the tiger transferred onto the board, and he's ready for painting. And I'll get to that in a bit, and I'll share. I'll make another video, hopefully, and share that. Here's my old sketch. Superficially, it still looks okay, but I don't know if you can look at the back of this. It's all chewed up. The ballpoint pen really dug into the paper. It's really quite noticeable. So the probability that I'm even going to try to sell this is extremely low. If somebody had an interest in these, I suppose I'd consider it. I'll keep them around for a while just in case somebody is interested, but I can't understand why you'd be interested if there's a painting to be bought. And that's about all I got. Thanks.